Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska. And today I have the distinct privilege of introducing a new friend to Worcester, and a Rotarian. A different candy in the box of life.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I always mangle people's last names, and I know yours is probably very easy, but if you could officially introduce yourself and your title, and then how you came to be in Worcester and how you came to be part of Rotary.
Okay. I'm Sandy Burgers, and it's very simple, just like cheeseburgers.
Okay, good.
And
I love the food.
exactly. And I am actually the current president of the Shrewsbury Rotary Club, and I have quite a story of how I got to be president of the club. But I'll start with life is a journey,
Yes.
and it has many, many changes. Almost 30 years ago, we moved from South Dakota to Kansas City area with two small girls. And my husband and I moved to the house we thought we were going to live in forever. The girls went to the same school, K through 12 in Overland Park. And then they went off to college in Claremont, California. They both went to undergrad in Claremont at one of two of the consortium schools there. And we traveled a lot to the West Coast. I know California pretty well because of that. And my sister also lives there. Well, fast forward to when they were in college, our youngest did a year abroad in France because she's a French and Middle Eastern Studies major. And at the same time, we became empty nesters. Life was great, you know. We could eat Cheerios for dinner if we wanted to, you know. It didn't matter. And dinner could be at 4 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. It didn't matter.
You didn't have to have that schedule.
And then somebody came to us and said, you guys should be host parents for Rotary Youth Exchange. And my husband and I looked at each other like, no more 10 o'clock Cheerios. So
we have to set a good example.
We thought about it. And we took in our first exchange student, a young man from Denmark, who we're very much involved with at this point in his life as well. And 7 students later, I joined Rotary. Actually, 5 students in, I joined Rotary when the youth exchange officer of the district contacted me and he said, you know, you need to join Rotary. And I'm like, I'm not a professional. I'm basically a domestic engineer. So that doesn't fit the engineers of Rotary that I had in my mind. And yeah, you know, we don't have a lot of money. So I'm not one of those rich guys who can be in
or
Rotary.
gals.
And he's like, no. Rotary is service above self. You are the epitome of service. Really? Okay. These kids are great. That's no big deal, you know. And I was also volunteering at 2 domestic violence shelters. And one of the CEOs was actually a Rotarian in the city where we lived, Overland Park, Kansas. And she wanted to be my sponsor. And I was like, okay, but this club is 120 of the movers and shakers in Overland Park. That's not me. So she asked me to join. I went and visited a few times, had some delicious meals.
Back to the burgers.
Right, back to, they're even better than burgers.
Okay.
You know, it was a sit down. It was a pretty fancy club. Clubs come in all shapes, sizes, flavors. This one was pretty formal. Okay, I joined. They opened me with welcome arms, despite not being what I thought a Rotarian is. In fact, the first year they gave me New Rotarian of the Year award because of my involvement with Youth Exchange and how much I truly loved the kids and was involved. So that was very humbling. Well, fast forward 2 students, he left, which the last one was also a young man from Denmark. We had other countries in between. So right after he left, my husband got laid off from a job that he'd been in nearly 30 years. He thought he was going to work a few more years, maybe 5 more years and retire. Right. The company was sold. It was not pretty. He and about 1,000 other programmers and, software engineers and whatnot was let go.
Yeah.
Well,
poof went the dream.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We were like, okay, this is not where our journey was supposed to go. Right. And, he got pretty depressed. And 4 to 5 months in, we looked at each other and he said, you know what? Despite having our house exactly the way we want it, I had just had a new she shed built 2 years ago, custom with a pink chandelier and everything.
Like your
windows
style.
That went up. It was gorgeous. A little porch on front. It was great. We looked at each other and said, we have 2 little granddaughters in New England, in Northborough, Massachusetts. What on earth is more important than developing that relationship with them? Well, I called my friend, the realtor. 3 weeks later, our house was on the market. 12 hours after it went on the market, we had 2 offers above asking. There was no going back. Mm-hmm. This is in the middle of winter. So here we are in February, moving to New England.
Yes, not a good time.
Not a good time.
Not a good time. Not a good look.
We drove through every kind of weather you can imagine between point A and point B.
And you weren't in Kansas anymore, right? Sorry.
We weren't in Kansas. I should have had my ruby slippers on. Or maybe not.
It would clash with the pink chandelier.
Exactly. So we get here. We moved into an apartment, which was... It's a nice apartment. It's where this place called Spags was.
Yeah, legendary.
Yeah, legendary. We'd never heard of it.
You'd never heard of it.
Of course, we saw the Whole Foods and thought, woohoo! We can just walk right over there. We were there for, maybe 6, 7 months. We thought, oh, this is ridiculous. We got to buy a house. And, Shrewsbury and Northborough was a little above our
your pay
threshold.
grade.
Yeah,
your pay grade.
We did not want a mortgage and blah, 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 because we're too old for that. And the first house I saw in Worcester reminded me of the farmhouse I grew up in Iowa. Wow. It was built in 1890. That house was built in the 1900s. A house that needed some TLC and love. So we bought the house. But while we were in the apartment, I knew I needed to get out. So I thought, Rotary. It connects people all around the world. I've even been to a meeting in France, which is really amazing to get wine with your lunch.
Again, the food connection.
And white tablecloth. And good connections, exactly. So, which doesn't hurt a bit, especially when your daughter is over there by herself. And so I joined their club. Nice club, small club. I thought, wow, this club has potential to grow. And then we moved to Worcester. I still remained with the Shrewsbury Club. Lo and behold, they asked me to be president. I don't know anybody here. I get lost going everywhere I go because there's not a straight road in Massachusetts. Thank goodness for GPS.
It's not laid out on a grid, right? It's not, yeah, right.
Yeah, they would laugh at me when I walked in late to the first 5 meetings I went to because I took a wrong turn. And anyway, so now I'm president, and one of my passions with Rotary is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. With diversity and inclusion being top on my list. Inclusion means everybody.
Right.
And I think I am the start of everybody because in the 80s was the first time women were allowed to join Rotary. I am not a professional. I don't work outside the home. I do all volunteering, and they asked me to be president. And now I'm involved in the district task force of DEI. And with this, I hope to grow the club. And I hope to reach out to my neighbors who in Worcester, gosh, they're beautiful. The diversity is...
Right. It's very, very apparent.
And I love it. The little kids come up to me. In fact, I just installed a little free library based on DEI.
Okay.
With children's books, adult books. And that's another thing. A Rotarian actually started that.
Huh.
And the 4-way test for Rotary is something I try to put into my daily life.
And that is?
Is it the truth? Is it fair for all concerned? Does it build goodwill and friendship? And it's just an amazing rubric to use for your life and in your business, with your family. You know, building goodwill and friendships, especially in today's world. And I see Rotary International doing that. And to me, my journey is about service and friends and family. And the DEI, including everybody.
Right. Yes.
Anybody can be family.
Yes.
In my house. And that all started with youth exchange. These 7 students who came into my home, total strangers, ate my food, put their feet on my couch, cried on my shoulder when they missed home, laughed.
And learned.
Sometimes there was some miscommunications in language. And some of it was hilarious.
So how long did the students stay with you? Were there more than one at a time?
We did have 2 at one time, which was not one of our better choices because our home was small. And they ended up being 2 very different people. And they had to share a room. And looking back, one was OCD about cleanliness. The other one was a soccer player, football player, who threw dirty socks wherever they landed, and they didn't smell so great. Yeah, those 2 didn't get along very well.
I guess, and
they usually stayed a whole school year. Rotary likes to have 2 or 3 families. We had a couple of them talk us into just keeping them the whole year.
Wow.
And I'm not sure why, other than they were just our kids. And we just treated them like our own and loved them. Nothing special.
So I'm just drawing. It sounds like most of them were boys, or
we had girls too.
You had girls too.
Yep, we had 3 girls. We had a girl from Romania.
Okay.
We had a girl from France and a girl from Germany.
Okay.
And in fact, next June, we are planning on going to our Romanian daughter's wedding.
Oh, wow.
She has asked us to be her special guest.
Oh, wow. Well, you obviously had an impact.
Yeah, and she is now a dentist. And she is amazing. She's beautiful. She's bright. She's accomplished. And very proud of her.
Well, it sounds as though, again, you allowed yourself to be open. Even though you kind of scoffed at, well, why would they want me?
Exactly. What do I have to offer?
But obviously, again, the things that you offer are the human qualities that we all have, but do we all acknowledge and do we all utilize? And I think that's what's lacking. That people scatter to their little different hidey holes, and then they proclaim, well, I'm a this, like I'm a finger, you're a toe, and so never the twain shall meet. However, they're all part of the body.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
They're both important.
Exactly. And when you go to a Rotary Club, oftentimes it's when they go around and introduce themselves. I'm a computer engineer. I'm a I'm a teacher, or I'm a retired teacher, or
Or a
I'm
dentist,
whatever.
or a
They don't say, my
Right.
number one job right now is being a grandma,
Yeah.
with my two little ones. And having my granddaughter say, Grandma, you sure do a lot of kind things for people. And I hope to do that, but sometimes it's really hard for me because my sister drives me nuts sometimes.
Well, remember, human beings, we
Exactly.
have the ability to to make a difference, but we make choices whether we will or we won't. And I think part of your story is you made choices. You just didn't permit things to happen to you and then whine or complain about them. You made something happen from that, and I think that's what's very attractive about you, but it's also attractive to a service organization because it needs to be infused with people who are just don't have the motivation of this is going to be good for me. Oh, and on the opposite side of the coin, I'll benefit others, but really the incentive is this is good for me. I'm going to get exposure. I'm going to be recognized. And I hear that on the boards that I'm privileged to be on. That in our culture, your work identity often becomes your identity, and if you don't have that, title, you are looked somewhat askance at.
Right. Yes.
But your comments about diversity, equity, and inclusion. When I was cited, I would have thought in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion of again being benevolent, being Lady Bountiful, being helping those who were marginalized or oppressed. But that also, I think, in your mind, you see a ladder. So you see people at the top of the ladder, and you see people at the bottom of the ladder, and the people at the bottom of the ladder may want to climb the ladder, but don't have the benefits that other people at the top of the ladder have, and the people at the top of the ladder don't want those people to have those benefits. They don't.
Exactly.
They don't want to to spread it around. So my own transformation has now my emphasis is on the I for inclusion, as you said as well, including everyone, and realizing it's you don't know what you don't know. We were just talking about this before we started taping literacy moments, saying, I don't speak professional.
Right.
I don't speak medicalese. I don't speak legalese. So by using terminology or using words that you're unfamiliar with, that's a way to exclude people. So level the playing field. And I think with my own sight loss, realizing that people who are visually impaired or blind were people who have eyes that don't work. I mean, we have eyes,
Right,
but they don't work. Or people who have mobility or motor issues. Well, their limbs may not work, but they still have them.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
so rather than harping always upon the have and the have not, let's start with a common denominator that we are all people. We all have legs and arms or not, but I mean, but we all have a beating heart. Hopefully we have a functioning brain as well. So and I think the difficulty for human beings is it's so easy to fracture into segments and say, well, I'm a this and you're not. Right. And so that's why I have a preferred status and you have a lesser status. So rather than me go off and pontificate, I think it's extraordinary that it appears that the Rotarians are recognizing that the attributes that you have And hopefully they're going to recognize that they too can start to develop those attributes, and not just use you as a token of, well, we've got someone who's kind and thoughtful and sensitive, and so therefore we don't need to develop those. We don't need to flex those muscles because we've got someone that
we have somebody that fits that box.
Exactly.
And that's starting at Rotary International too. They have their new DEI inclusion statement. That's amazing. And I do have to say, I got a phone call one day from a fellow Rotarian who's, he doesn't change his mind easily. I'm just going to put it that way. And he goes, I have to thank you for something. I'm like, what did I do? I didn't do anything. He goes, you made me look at DEI differently. I always thought when somebody brought that up, they're going to point the finger at me and call me racist.
They're going to accuse you.
They're going to accuse you.
Or shame you.
And he said, you opened my eyes to what inclusion really means. The true definition of it, of including everybody. And not just sex or what ethnicity,
background. Yep.
But it's everything. He goes, I thank you for that, because I used to have the little hairs on my neck raised. Mm-hmm. And now I can listen to it without getting all defensive first. And I'm sitting there on the phone going, wow, I didn't realize I did that,
I have to, so a couple years ago, and again, I've only been legally blind for 13 years. This like you with Rotary, like you with the Northeast, you were entering a world that was foreign to you, that was different, and that was the case with me with my blindness. Anyway, there evidently is a disability index where cities across the United States are ranked for their friendliness to people with disabilities, and Overland Park is number one. Why? Because it's flat.
Yes, it is. Yeah, Kansas, there's a study done, flatter than a pancake.
And again, based upon the criteria that they were looking for, that was touted to be like one of the best places for quote unquote people with disabilities to live. However,
absolutely.
It was more people with mobility issues as opposed to people with sensory deficits like I have, or people with cognitive or intellectual, challenges. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So anyway, I'd never really heard of Overland Park. Sorry, I never really heard of it.
I know. It's a suburb of Kansas City, so.
But so just as a follow-on, there is on CNN, there is a program called the United Shades of America, the host of which is African American, and he came to Worcester and he interviewed me about my my sight loss, and I blindfolded him. and they took 18 hours of footage around downtown Worcester, but the footage that made it into the program was of I being his sighted guide at Elm Park. So he was blindfolded and had the cane, and I was giving him like verbal cues about and allowing him to touch things, and because it wasn't like the average, it wasn't like the average stick on people with disabilities, and that's what I hear you saying, Sandy. That's why Rotary is interested in you, because and that's why you're being commended. You're not just picking up the byline and and going along with it. You're making change, and you're out there in the front, by making change, and that's what we need. And so I would love to be involved with you making change here.
I love that.
You know, with DEI,
Uh-huh.
Again, with the emphasis on inclusion. So I want to welcome you to this community, and this community is not just, you know, Worcester proper, but really, again, the world. So welcome to my world.
Thank you. It's very humbling, and I to be welcomed and to enter it. So I appreciate that very much.
And now you're a woman of Worcester.
Yeah, I love that.
And if people are interested in Rotary, how should they contact you?
They can contact me via my my email, which is Sandra Burgers, just like cheeseburgers, at outlook.com. All lowercase, just like it sounds. Easy
peasy.
It should be anyway, but you know how that goes.
I know how that goes. Okay. Well,
I would love to meet anybody who would like to, or even have a conversation. You know, I love, you know, meeting
you love
new
people. You love people. It's obvious. It's obvious. So thank you for being my guest today on Connecting the Dots, and let's continue to connect the dots.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Join me the next time for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lisbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Lizbeth Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with Compliments.